gunfire was heard as violent clashes broke out in a migrant camp in Dunkirk over the weekend, involving people trying to get to Britain. The chaos erupted as asylum seekers prepared to board boats laid on by smuggling gangs in a journey which proved to be deadly. Choppy waters and high winds sank a small boat, killing 6 people. And this all comes as an internal government memo delivered a grim warning that the migrant crisis is set to last at least 5 more years. Joining me in the studio now is senior political correspondent at The Guardian, Aubrey Allegretti. Thanks for coming, Aubrey. We're also joined by Daniel Sohej, who is the director of the human rights organisation Stand for All. Daniel, good to see you. I'll come to you in just a minute. So, Aubrey, if you'll set the scene over the weekend and also give people some idea of the number of migrants who arrived on small boats in just those 3 days.
So last week, on Monday, we were told it was going to be Small Boats Week, and that was supposed to be the start of a flurry of announcements that were meant to demonstrate the government's commitment to stopping the boats, ending migrants crossing the channel, and also reducing the cost of accommodating those who are waiting to be processed in hotels. Now, there are a series of solutions that have been proposed, including this very controversial one about putting up to 500 migrants on a barge in the southwest of England. Now, the first sort of dozen or so migrants were placed on the barge on Monday, and there seems to be a very confused timeline about what took place over the next 4 or 5 days. But it has emerged that there was Legionella disease discovered on board, and therefore some of these migrants had to be removed. There's now effectively a 4-way blame game between the various different authorities about who knew what when.
Yes.
But ultimately, these asylum seekers are now being placed elsewhere. The boat is vacant, and there haven't been answers to lots of questions.
In other words, it's a complete embarrassment, isn't it, for the Home Office, and a huge embarrassment for the government, because there was colossal fanfare about this Bibby Stockholm, about how it was being refurbed, about how each cabin was being divided to accommodate yet more migrants, about what a good idea it was and how much it was going to save the taxpayer, although, of course, the cost of the money that was going to be given to Portland to accommodate and look after and provide facilities was over £2 million. The cost of refurbing the boat, you may know, I'm not sure how much it was, but a huge amount of money. So the initial outlay, paid for by all of us, was going to be colossal, but apparently we were going to recoup the money ultimately. And instead, what did we have? 39 migrants aboard this 500 capacity barge, immediately pretty much having to vacate because of Legionella bacteria in the water system. And we had a doctor, a specialist on this programme only a couple of days ago talking about how incredibly difficult it is to eradicate it. It's not a simple procedure. It can take weeks, it can take months. It may be that this boat becomes a colossal embarrassment for the government and a huge cost and drain on finances for no effect whatsoever.
That's quite right. Embarrassment and catastrophe are the 2 words that I've heard most from Conservative MPs today, and they're not just frustrated with the local authorities, because there's obviously this blame game taking place between the council, the Home Office contractors and the UK Health Security Agency. They're also very frustrated at the Home Office's sort of failure to grip this. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is coming back from holiday this week. He will no doubt sort of want to take the heat out of this situation and make sure that it's resolved as quickly as possible. But the Home Office tried to rush through with this, make sure it got everyone on board so that it could sort of make this announcement for the start of Small Boats Week. And there have been questions raised for months about health and safety checks and whether or not they were adequate and have been done. So this is going to be further embarrassment to the government.
So my notes here say 509 migrants crossed the Channel on Saturday and more than 1,600 migrants crossed within 3 days. We know we've got at least 170,000 migrants banked up awaiting some kind of processing. And when I say banked up, it means unable to work, with no national insurance number, with no way of taking on any sort of legitimate work in the sort of legitimate British economy, just waiting and waiting and waiting. Why is there neither the will nor the means nor the impetus to speed up the processing of these human beings who are just waiting and waiting? What's going wrong here?
Yeah, the backlog is absolutely enormous. And when you look at the number of people who are supposed to be housed in either the barge or the disused RAF bases that we've also been hearing about today, you're looking at numbers in a matter of thousands, maybe 3, maybe 4 or 5,000 at a push. That, you know, the number of people who are waiting to be processed is in the tens of thousands. So lots of people are asking what is the long-term strategy for helping deal with that backlog? I think the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, was asked about this and effectively said, we don't want to sort of get through the backlog too quickly because we don't want to provide an incentive for people to come so that they think they can sort of chance their arm. Now, obviously, there are lots of people who make asylum applications that are denied, they're scrutinised and they can appeal, and some do so successfully. But again, the government isn't doing what Labour has been calling for a very long time, of making sure they get through that backlog as quickly as possible, because that is ultimately what's going to reduce the hotel costs, not just these kind of small, fragmental ideas like the boat.
OK, so do you think that Rishi Sunak has drawn colossal attention to small boats and migrants arriving in boats at great risk to themselves in this country because he has suggested and insisted and maintained that it's something about which most people in the United Kingdom care profoundly, and we want it stopped, and we don't want these people to arrive on our shores, this kind of a thing, and pledging to stop it and making announcements and pronouncements and proclamations and constantly driving attention towards it? Is this because he's right and most people are fixated on it and very worried and very upset and very concerned about it? Or is he wrong because A, he's patently failed to do anything to address it or stop it at all, but B, because actually most people are just getting on with their lives and much more concerned about making a living, cost of living crisis, NHS waiting lists, which we're going to come to later on in the programme. You know, people are thinking of other things, and for some reason or other, he's got it at the very top of the agenda where it isn't legitimately for most people. Am I wrong or right about this?
Well, it is a very serious issue, and obviously the 6 deaths over the weekend speak to that. You also have, obviously, the big cost. It doesn't feel terribly sustainable for this to go on, but the risk you have is that he has set himself a task that he doesn't seem to be able to complete, which is stop the boats. He did not say, let's have a 15% reduction in the boat numbers or the number of people who are coming across on boats, which is what we've seen, roughly speaking, compared to last year. He sort of walked out with great fanfare and said, I think a couple of months ago, our plan is working. But most people will hear the constant stream of people arriving, the figure of about 100,000 who've arrived since 2018, and take that as proof that warm words are not what's deterring these people. It's going to be action that does.